G'day guys, welcome back to another video on the channel, and in today's video we're going to be going through some of the best AFL rivalries out there. I think I've done this video only once in the past, which was bloody years ago. I do actually just remember filming it in the back of my head. However, UCat, shout out to UCat, he did this video a few weeks back and I saw that he created a pretty nice looking tier maker, which I am deciding to do myself this video. We've got plenty of AFL rivalries to rank. We've got 5 tiers to put them in, starting at prime footy, pretty good, decent, and irrelevant. Before we do get into today's video, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. We're trying to hit 7k by the end of the year, and it is only possible if you, as a viewer that hasn't subscribed yet, subscribes, because we're going to need to absolutely pump out the content, absolutely grind, and I'm willing to do that for you if you do hit the subscribe button, so it would be much appreciated. Also, leave a like on the video, follow my Instagram for, you know, just the usual updates and everything like that, and we'll get straight into the video. Alright, so as you can see here on this tier maker, we have got a lot of AFL rivalries to be ranking, and a lot of them, look at this, consisting Collingwood, a lot of them consisting, you know, Essendon, and just a lot of teams. Like, there's a wide variety of teams in this list, so we're going to get straight into it. Adelaide, Port Adelaide. I'm not going to lie, there's a bit of history behind the showdown, and I absolutely love turning on the showdown. However, recently it's just like not been in the best time slot, I feel. Back in 2013 and 2014, when, you know, Chad Wingard was around, Angus Monfries, I remember he was iconic for the power in some of those showdowns. I remember the right angled bounce from Monfries to put the power like within a kick with a couple minutes to go in the last quarter. So there's a lot of history behind this. Like, they used to play back, what was it called? Was it called Amy Stadium? Like, there's a lot of history behind these two sides, and I think at the moment it's a pretty fierce rivalry, because obviously Port Adelaide are the better team, but what are Adelaide this year in the showdowns? 2-0, so they've got a bloody good record. I'm going to put it in pretty good, I feel like. Not prime footy just yet, because I feel like prime footy has to consist of, not going to lie, like 2 Vic teams, like 2 massive teams, and it's not going to do the trick for prime footy. However, pretty good, I reckon, is a perfect rank. Q-Clash, I think, is just, let's be honest, like, seriously, Gold Coast only used to win when Brisbane were wooden spoon contenders back in like 2016, 2017. I don't know how long it has been since they've won a Q-Clash, actually. I don't know why I'm saying that, because they won one this year, didn't they, up at Heritage Bank Stadium. But it's always a blowout. Like, no matter who wins, it's always a blowout, and obviously most of the time it is Brisbane winning, and it's always just 10 goals, like 40 points to 10 goals, and it's just a boring game. So I'm going to put in I don't feel like it's an irrelevant clash, because, you know, it's sort of there, but it's just not my cup of tea. Brisbane and Port Adelaide. I honestly see not much rivalry in these two sides. The only time I remember this is when Brisbane played Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, and Cam Sutcliffe was tagging, I think it was Lachie Neale. And I remember Mitch Robinson wanted a bit of a piece of him from the bench as well. That was pretty cool. If you haven't watched that, then check that out on YouTube. You could probably just type it up. But yeah, that's the only really time I remember a rivalry between the two sides. Other than that, I don't think like there's that big of a clash. I'm gonna put it in irrelevant, because I wouldn't really label it a rivalry if we were like coming into the week and Brisbane play Port Adelaide. I wouldn't name it a rivalry. Anyway, we've got a lot to get through, so we've sort of got to just stop talking and start getting to the point. Collingwood, Brisbane. Zach Bailey sort of started that rivalry, didn't they? Oh, they actually do have a pretty big rivalry. I remember that video of Maynard just getting into Mitchie Robinson. I'm going to put it in decent. I don't think it's and I don't think it's obviously irrelevant. I think it's there just because it's 2 top quality sides. They obviously faced off last Friday night. Brisbane got the Chockies, which is interesting. I don't know how the final series are going to go, but Brisbane, genuine contenders. Collingwood, Carlton, prime footy. Where else would you put this on the list? Like, this is the pinnacle of an AFL rivalry. This is the biggest AFL rivalry in AFL history. There's no question about it. You cannot argue anything different. Collingwood, Carlton, two pretty much like the biggest teams in the AFL, both from Victoria, same venue. Like, it doesn't get much bigger than this. There's always a packed crowd for this contest. And, well, Carlton did get the better of the Pies, unfortunately, a few weeks ago, because the Pies are in a bit of a slump, and the Blues are on an absolute surge. What have they won? 8 in a row. Collingwood and Essendon. I'd probably pop this in prime footy as well. Anzac Day is always elite. There's always 95 plus K in the house at the G on Anzac Day, and let me tell you this, the atmosphere there is insane. I worked Anzac Day this year and last year, and the atmosphere is just incredible. Like, it's something you've never witnessed. It feels like a grand final when you're there. It feels like a genuine finals game, like something's on the line, but it's just sort of Anzac Day footy, you know what I mean? So it's a big clash, a big rivalry, 100%. The two top sides just don't like each other. They always put on a clinic as well. And speaking of this game, this Friday night, Collingwood and Essendon, so it should be good to see who gets the chockies, because obviously Essendon coming off 126-point loss to GWS, which is a bit embarrassing. Sorry to remind you, Essendon fans, but yeah. Collingwood and Melbourne, I'm going to put this, I think, in pretty good. I wouldn't call it a rivalry. However, I would just call it like a really good matchup. Queen's birthday every year. Obviously now it's King's birthday, so I'll call it Queen's birthday because we haven't really had a King's birthday yet. Actually, we have had one, haven't we? Wow, the Queen died so long ago. It's already been like nearly a year. That's crazy to think about it. However, yeah, Queen's birthday footy, they always just put on a good contest. Like, I remember when Jack Watts, I don't know why this comes to mind, but Jack Watts streaming into the open goal, I think it was 2018, 2019, maybe even 2017. He was streaming into the goal in the fourth term to put the D's up, and the D's put on a clinic this year in the King's birthday clash. They obviously beat the Inform Pies by a few points and was a pretty big upset for most people. Collingwood and Richmond, wow, this is like another game that just packs out the G if it's in the right time slot. I remember this year, it was played on a Friday night. Game was shit out. So I think the final scores were like 44-60 or something. It was shit game, and the weather was absolutely shocking. I think there was only like 50k people who rocked up for a Collingwood home game. Isn't great, by the way. I'm going to put it in decent because two Vic teams facing off, it's always a pretty big thing, like a pretty big rivalry, and there can always be a scrap, obviously, with two Vic teams facing off. So I'm going to put it in decent. Don't think it's irrelevant, but I feel like there's better clashes, and like the Collingwood and Melbourne game, they obviously play every Queen's birthday, every King's birthday. Collingwood and Richmond don't really have that type of schedule, if you know what I mean. There's not really like an important game to look forward to every year for them unless it's finals. Collingwood and West Coast, well, I would say for a couple years after 2018, this rivalry was through the roof. However, nowadays, like, I'm going to base this sort of on like all-time rivalries. I'm going to put it pretty good. I'm not going to put it, actually, I'll put it in front of the showdown. I'll put it in front of the showdown just because of Dom Sheed. I'll do it. If there's any West Coast supporters watching, I'll do this. Sorry, Collingwood fans, but I'm going to put in pretty good because I feel like the next like 4 games after the Dom Sheed grand final, 2018 grand final, should I say, they were all like really good contests. However, nowadays, it's not really a contest. Like, it's not really a rivalry. Obviously, we'll always keep in the back of our mind the 2018 grand final, one of the best grand finals to ever go down. But nowadays, not too great of a rivalry. But back in the day, 100%, like, probably the best rivalry up there. Essendon and Carlton, once again, 2 Vic teams. I'm just going to chuck in here decent. I'm honestly not a fan of this game, this rivalry. I don't genuinely think it brings that much to the table. 2 Vic teams, once again, massive crowd, massive atmosphere, but the teams, they don't really hate each other, I don't think. Obviously, I'm not the guy to judge this because I'm not a Carlton nor Essendon fan, so Carlton and Essendon fans, let me know in the comments below whether or not you just dislike one another. But for me, I think it's a decent. I think it's pretty much the same as Collingwood Richmond. Essendon and Hawthorn, I'm actually not really that much of like a hater. I actually don't mind the Hawks-Dons clash. Happened round 1 this year. The Hawks got smoked. But 2021, round 1, I think it was, or was it round 2, where Hawthorn were down by 40 points and they still came up and won. Like, that's a good game of footy. And once again, 2 Vic teams, always a good rivalry, always a good atmosphere in the house, which really brings down the crowd. Sort of high stakes in every Vic clash, I guess. Essendon North Melbourne, I really wouldn't put this in a rivalry. The only time I could, like, once again recall a rivalry in this situation, 2015, was it 2015, I think, with the Drew Petrie goal. You know that one, the celebration, the Drew Petrie goal in that final. That's the only time I recall a pretty good and, you know, sort of rivalry moment between these two sides. I'm going to chuck it in air because it really just doesn't really spark any entertainment nowadays. Back in the day, like, I could remember it back in like prime footy, like 2015 to 2018. and maybe even a bit before that. Freo Carlton now, as a Freo fan, ever since Jack Nunes kicked that goal, like, I didn't actually dislike Carlton before that too much, but ever since Jack Nunes has kicked that goal, I have despised the Carlton Football Club, and I genuinely just do not like them. So as a Freo fan, I can put this, well, actually, now taking a step back, viewing it from a different perspective, if you're a Collingwood fan or something, you're not going to give a shit about Freo v Carlton. Like, it's not really that big of a rivalry, actually. I'm going to put it in air. I don't think it's irrelevant. I'm going to put it in air because there's obviously a little bit of history behind the games, like MCG clash when Freo had that home game back in 2021 versus Carlton. That was pretty interesting. That was a good game of footy. Sam Walsh sealed it for them. Also, Mark Murphy back in 2019 sealed it for them at Optus, and Jack Nunes sealed it for them in 2020. So you really just can't escape. It's a Blues nightmare for a Dockers fan like myself. So I'm going to put it in air because looking at it from a different point of view, it's not really that big of a rivalry. But as a Freo fan myself, don't really like the Carlton Football Club. Freo West Coast. Now, there are certain occasions where this can be a really fiery, fierce game of footy and be a really good rivalry. For instance, Andrew Gaff incident in 2018. That sparked some heat for the rest of the game. This year, not really anything in the derby. Like, I don't remember any really push and shove. Caleb Strong at the end of last year's derby, I think he got into a bit, or was that even early this year? I don't recall, don't remember. But I'm going to put this one in, I'm going to put it in pretty good because it can genuinely spark, and like it's the only two sides in WA, share the same home deck, stuff like that. I feel like the two sides genuinely just dislike each other. Like, I haven't met one Eagles fan who I actually like, and I just hate the Eagles team, like genuinely just do not like it. A few more to go through here. We'll now go to Geelong Hawthorn. Easter Monday footy. I'm chucking this in pretty good. I'm chucking it, honestly, in front of, I reckon it's equal with the Pies, D's, Queen's birthday, King's birthday clash. I reckon Easter Monday footy, just any game on a Monday, you just chuck on the telly, just a chillaxed, relaxed day. Monday Arvo footy, 3:20, good time slot. Just a really good game, and these teams seem to put on a pretty good game, like every Easter Monday, sorta. Obviously not this year. I think Geelong smoked them by nearly 100, but yeah, like they usually do put on a pretty good contest, and it's entertaining to watch any game on a Monday. Geelong St Kilda, I just don't feel like they have too much of a rivalry. Back in like 2014, they used to put on a clinic because, I don't know, every time at Marvel, they just used to. I'm going to put it in air once again because two Vic teams, but not really a rivalry in my opinion. GWS Sydney, this has caused a bit of beef this year. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'm going to chuck it in pretty good because this rivalry's been pretty good this year. Like, there's genuine beef on the social media accounts between the two sides, and I don't think they actually like each other. Let me know down below if you guys are a GWS or Sydney fan, whether or not you dislike one another. GWS Western Bulldogs used to be one of the best rivalries in my opinion. However, this rivalry stopped in 2021, I feel, when the Doggies just absolutely smashed them by like 10 plus goals. And ever since then, it's just not been the same. I'm still going to chuck it in pretty good because I wouldn't mind like watching a GWS Bulldogs game because obviously 2016 prelim final is history and just such a good contest. And they've had some pretty good scraps in the past as well. Hawthorn Sydney, the only time I recall like once again a rivalry between these two sides are grand finals. So I'm going to put it in decent. I don't really feel like anymore there's a rivalry between them. They used to be the two best sides of the era back in 2012 to 2015. They were both just incredibly good sides. Obviously Hawthorn getting the better of them, winning the three-peat from 2013 on to 2015. Richmond Carlton, once again, two sides who start off every single year. Well, obviously the first game every single year. I'm going to chuck it in decent because I know they probably don't like each other as a club. They're two Vic teams who face off at the same time every single year. However, like Richmond usually do get the better of them. However, might switch because Carlton they didn't win this year. It was a draw first game of the season, believe it or not. But Richmond do usually get the chockies against Carlton first game of the year. Wouldn't really call it a rivalry, but the two sides probably don't really like each other. Couple more to go. West Coast Sydney. Well, 171 point win for the Swans this year. I wouldn't call it a rivalry. I'll pop it in irrelevant, honestly. Put it in irrelevant. Back in 05, it would be a good game, obviously, because they're the two best sides in the league. Obviously, the 05 an 06 granny, I believe it was. However, nowadays, there's just no rivalry. Like, you don't look at the fixture and be like, oh, look at this rivalry between West Coast and Sydney nowadays. I just don't think that's a thing. And the last but not least, it is Dreamtime at the G. They always seem to pull in a great game, and this year, wowee, wasn't it a great contest between these two sides? Gonna chuck it up in pretty good where the majority of these rivalries stand, because wow, they put on an absolute clinic this year for Dreamtime at the G. That's gonna probably be where we finish this video. I feel like the two clashes at the top of the table are two Vic teams and well, the three biggest clubs in the AFL. So I feel like that's fair why I've put them up at the top. That's going to be it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Also subscribe to the channel down below. As I said, by the end of the year, trying to hit 7K, so only you can make it possible. I'd really appreciate it if you could do so, and I will see you all in my next piece of content.